Hey there, Mac Frazier, pastor at New Way Church, and I'm working on just doing video for all sorts of different reasons, and one of the things that I've committed to do is putting out at least one recorded video a week. Now, what are these recorded videos going to be on? Pretty much anything. The main point for me is to just get practice doing this. So my apologies if I ramble a bit and I talk about things that you're not that interested in. I'm not really trying to build a particular audience around a particular subject, but just learn the technology. So, what am I going to talk about today? Today, I want to talk a little bit about one of the aspects of being a church planter, which sometimes really appeals to me, but sometimes is also very, very frustrating. And to a certain degree, this is something that even pastors at established congregations deal with. But it's kind of turned up a level when you're starting from scratch, which a church planter often is. So what I wanted to talk about today is learning as you go. Now, let me just start off by saying that I've pretty much spent my entire professional life, not just my career in ministry, but in previous life in the world of business and technology, always doing something right at the edge of my own competency. Meaning I'm always finding myself doing things I've never done before, which means that I spend a lot of time outside of my area of expertise and in a growth mode. This is very stimulating, very exciting, very fun. I love learning. I'm a voracious autodidact. I like to teach myself stuff. But it also means that I'm sort of in a constant state of feeling like a failure. I don't know if you can identify with that in your life, but part of it is, I fail a lot because I'm always trying things I've never tried before. And, just playing the odds, you should expect to fall down a lot the first time you head out on the ice, right? So I'm always trying new things. And when you're trying to start a church from scratch, there are a lot of things that you may have just taken for granted if you were working in a traditional church that suddenly you have to figure out how to do. So, for instance, things that I have learned as a church planter. I have learned how to form nonprofit corporations. I have learned how to negotiate commercial leases. I have learned the proper maintenance of fluorescent lighting in a commercial setting. I have learned about all sorts of zoning code laws and regulations about a commercial space. Notice a lot of this stuff has to do with our physical space and location. What got me on this topic is today I've been learning about how to program lighting. I've spent a good bit of time playing with these lights that we have in our space and learning how to program them. Found a way to make them blink and flash different colors based upon what the band's doing. We thought that was pretty amusing, but would be very distracting for a worship service. Spent a lot of time dealing with learning different technical things with the computers, learning how to work the soundboard, learning how to set up a sound system, learning how to troubleshoot a sound system when your music guy is away on vacation and it's all you and suddenly there's no sound. So that's all stuff that I kind of had to teach myself because there's no staff when you're starting out. There's just you and whatever volunteers you can talk into helping you out. And when you first get started, if you're doing it kind of the way I did it, is you start with a very, very small team. And for the most part, most of them don't know any more than you do about how to do most of the things you need to do to get a church started. So that's really exciting and fun and exhausting and frustrating. And like I said, it sort of puts you in a state of constantly feeling like you're just at the edge of your competency or sometimes over the edge. In fact, often over the edge. But there's a little bit more to this feeling. There's this thing called, I think it's imposter syndrome is one name for it. And it's this feeling that some people get, and different people get it to different degrees. Maybe this doesn't mean anything to you at all, but maybe this really has some connection for you. Imposter syndrome is a way of describing feeling like someday people are going to figure you out and they're going to rip back the curtain and it's just going to be you. and that you're going to be a big disappointment because people will suddenly realize that all along you had no idea what you were doing. And I admit I suffer from that quite a bit. I can be rational and look back over the events of my life and the things that I've accomplished, and I've got accomplishments, and say, yeah, I've demonstrated competency in a number of areas, and I've developed expertise in a few. There are some things that I can just do without thinking, and I think I can be honest with myself and say I do them very well. And there are things I have done, like achievements that I have reached at various stages of my professional life and my personal life, that are objectively, signs of competency. And yet, I still kind of always feel inadequate. And I think for me, part of it is I'm really bad at pausing to celebrate achievements as they happen. And this may be a feature of my ADD brain, or it may be a gendered thing, or it may just be my personal psychology, or maybe this is something everybody experiences. I don't know. You tell me. But I find that when I'm reaching about like the 90% mark of a task, my mind immediately starts moving to the next task. And even if that task that I'm moving up to the finish line on is a really big, momentous thing, I don't have time to enjoy it. I'm always like, okay, so how do we take this to the next level? Or what's this other thing which I've been back burnering that I now have to move to? And I'm always thinking about the next thing to the point where it interferes with my ability to really enjoy the conclusion of this thing, and to really be present in what it is that I'm doing. And so the me that lives life in the present, that present has a tendency to right before an achievement happens, to jump to the future. And so my personal experience, if I remember how I feel about things, I feel like I'm always striving but not achieving, even though I can look back and objectively say, oh yeah, I did this and I did that, and I managed to pull off that event and I created this thing. But at the time, I wasn't really experiencing the satisfaction of it. And that's, kind of a pain in the butt to live life that way. And you may be saying, well, Mac, just don't do that. I don't know how to not do that. That's kind of how I'm wired. And I'm sort of okay with it, because that leads me to strive for all sorts of things. And it actually makes me a little bit ambitious in ways that are probably pretty foolish. But in following my foolish dreams, desires, ambitions, whatever, that has led me down some really fun and interesting paths, and has helped me accomplish some things that I think are worth accomplishing, and achieving things that are worth achieving, even if I don't really get the emotional satisfaction of the achievement. So I think if I could take a pill that would transform me into somebody who is really good at celebrating things as they complete, and in exchange give up this sort of constant, thinking, okay, what's next? How do I take this somewhere else? What else do I do with this? I don't think I'd take that pill. I kind of like being the way I am, even though it gives me anxiety. Another aspect of this is I think part of it comes, and I'm pretty certain everybody does this to some degree, with me accidentally, and this is something that you can not do, it just takes effort and I'm working on it, but my unintentional comparing of my internal state with the external states I observe around me. Because I can only really see myself from my own perspective, and I can't see anyone else from their perspectives. I don't know what's going on inside you. I only see what you do. So I can watch your actions and I can say, oh, that person's life's pretty buttoned up. They seem to know what they're doing. They're a pretty competent person. And then I look at myself and I realize from my internal perspective that I'm always sort of like right on the edge of failing. Like I'm right on the edge of stumbling because I'm trying different things and I'm learning, just like I know everyone else is, but I can see that in myself. So I look at myself and I see somebody that I know on the outside probably looks like that other person who's doing well, but on the inside I have all these doubts and concerns, and I realize I'm just making this up as I go along half of the time, and I compare that to what I see in somebody else, and it makes me feel like a phony. Do you identify with that? I've heard from people that have similar experiences, so I know that I'm not alone in this, but it's something that I've found gets turned up a lot when you try to do something as kind of crazy and ambitious as build a church community from the ground up out of, just sort of open ground. This has been very different from my experience in building a business. When I did that, I started with a partnership of a whole bunch of people. Like our core leadership team, depending upon what level of participation people were doing, was sometimes there were like 3 or 4 core leaders, but overall we had like 10 leaders in the group, or 9. Always, doesn't matter. It's been an inside joke within refinery circles in the early days. It's like, how many are we? We'll call it 10. And there's 10 very dedicated people, and then we started hiring people. In starting the church, it was myself and my wife and sort of my kids, but not really. I mean, you can't expect them to be on board. They're just being dragged along by their parents. And then Ethan Dom, and then Kristen Coffin, who's now Kristen Dom. And we start with just those 4, and then we're working on recruiting some other people. And we sort of had to build the team up slowly from that. But all along, it was made pretty clear to me by a lot of the people that I was partnering with that this was kind of my show, as in, if it wasn't for me, no one else would have said, yeah, let's do this, right? This was purely Mac's dumb idea that people bought into, which put a level of responsibility on my shoulders that I had not experienced when I was one of 10 people that got together to form this company. And sort of having that level of focus really amped up my sense of feeling phony, incompetent, inadequate, and it played a number on my ego, my sense of self, sometimes in good ways. It was a source of a lot of spiritual growth to be able to say, you know what, I'm suffering because of self, maybe I should let self go. And in fact, maybe I should give self the boot hard. And I think I've grown more as a human being in the last 5 years than in any other 5-year period of my adult life. Yeah, I think that's true. And so it's been a great experience. I don't want to make it sound like, poor Mac, he's had this horrible, torturous experience in Austin, Texas. No, I am really happy. The things that I've learned here have been amazing. My experiences have been awesome. But I realize that this video is going really long now, and I'm going to have to edit it down as it is. And so I don't have time to tell you about all the good stuff. So I'm just going to leave you with that sense of, oh no. And I don't know. You tell me, have you ever felt inadequate, phony, or, incapable, incompetent? Let me know.